we don't just have a good marriage. I'll just say it. We have the most freaking amazing marriage. I doubt that there are many marriages on the planet that can stack against what we've been through and what we have and how amazing life is.
Kris, you named this show the Have It All Show.
Yeah, what are you doing in my seat?
Yeah, well, I'm taking over a little bit today.
That's what it looks like.
But it's because we have a special guest. You're always talking about amazing things with your finances, your business. We see your cars, we see your awesome house, we see your beautiful wife, and you're always talking about how amazing your marriage is. But we had to verify it because we're like, we know what a husband will say about his marriage. And then you bring the wife in and then we get the real details of how that relationship goes. Am I right, Colleen?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hey, for those of you that don't know, this is my amazing, incredible wife of 20 years, Colleen. Literally,
you.
Wednesday is our 20th anniversary. We just got back from the Maldives.
In 2 days. So I said, I should be on a podcast. And guess what? I've never been on a podcast before, ever.
Well,
so,
what you really said was, Kris, we have so much to share with people. We've taught marriage courses. People don't even know that we actually both graduated from Brigham Young University with like family degrees, like pre-counseling degrees, marriage, family, human development.
Hold on. How much of the homework, though, did Colleen do because you were all in the same classes?
Okay, well, it was kind of because I could type faster, so I would type up his papers while he dictated them to me. I don't know. It was kind of a group effort.
You guys have been a team for a long time.
Dude, well, it's interesting, right? I mean, I think a lot of couples go through this. We fall in love and it's the most amazing thing on the planet. And then, in our situation, we got married and then after a while that relationship started deteriorating, right? And I think a lot of people go through this phase where it gets bad before it gets better. And fortunately, we were able to figure out how to pull out of it and then take our marriage to, well, frankly, I mean, just the most amazing place right now. And we're hoping that some of what we share today will be useful and helpful for people. Just give them some marriage hacks.
Are you saying you still like me?
I love you more today than I did when I met you.
After 20 years?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So let me tell you why this is amazing. I feel like in the field of counseling and psychiatry, a lot of people go into those fields because they have struggles in those areas. But they haven't necessarily overcome those struggles. Kris, you talk about the difference between a coach and a mentor.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a coach and a mentor?
And I actually have to help everyone just understand, they're like, wait a second, Kris, you're telling me that you graduated in family sciences?
Yes.
Like you want to be a counselor or something? It's like, well, actually, if we go back to the beginning, I had started my real estate investing business. Go ahead.
Well, we were in college, right? And you decided you didn't want to be a doctor.
Yep.
But you really wanted to graduate from college with something.
Is it true it was to appease your mom?
Yes.
That is partially true.
I'm telling you right now, I did.
That's not entirely false.
It was weird. It was weird. I mean, if you just subtract a few years ago, there was a ton of pressure. There still is today for this thing.
Fading, but it's still
and
there.
everyone in my world said, without a degree, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I had discovered 6-figure income working at this telesales job. I was doing real estate on the side. And I'm like, what is everyone smoking? What's everyone talking about? Why? What do you mean? This dogma that college is required to be successful? College is a way to have a great and can be meaningful career for 17% of the people out there. It wasn't my path. Yeah. Most people hate what they do for a living.
So that was my major in marriage, family, and human development, and definitely my passion. And so I said, hey, Kris, if you want to just graduate from college, say you did it, come join me in my major.
Okay,
and then,
we're not spending a lot of time together anyway.
But we are not. We're going home, and then he's
I'm going to school
work,
full time. I'm working full time.
And I'm going to school, and I had jobs too, and we just didn't see a lot of each other. So I just said, hey, if we have the same major, I can arrange our schedule and get us in the same classes, so at least we can go to class together.
Literally, I got that major so that we could play footsies. That's it right there. Play footsies.
So,
yeah, it's true.
So we started this conversation off by saying you have a degree in family, consumer sciences, whatever it's called nowadays. That's much cooler than that. But really, that's not what qualifies you to talk on this subject.
Oh,
right?
Maybe it's because we've been together so long.
Come on. the difference between a coach and a mentor.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. A coach, I always tell people, is that individual who in theory understands things, and they're going to tell you, and maybe they've implemented to some extent, but a mentor is someone that has lived it, and they're playing the game at the highest level, and they're still in it, and they're still being paid at that highest level. And I do think that's a part of it. I'm an influencer everywhere for this concept called finance, and I've got all my health channels, but the whole Have It All channel is this idea that says we're multidimensional human beings. when people really screw it up in life, it's when they pursue one thing. I'm going to be good at money. I'm going to be really healthy. I'm going to work on my relationship, but I can't do all three. And Have It All says you can do all three. And by the way, you should if you want to live the happiest life possible. And so, Colleen and I, we don't just have a good marriage. I'll just say it. We have the most freaking amazing marriage. I doubt that there are many marriages on the planet that can stack against what we've been through and what we have and how amazing life is. And while this isn't about trying to persuade people of a certain, how it must be for us, we're here to just share some of what we've learned in hopes that everyone else can figure out, hey, how do you overcome some of the biggest, most basic struggles? Like, how do relationships, how does a couple get on the same page when it comes to money and sex? Right. Like, you understand, those are the two marriage busters. When marriage falls apart, it's always over money, it's always over sex. It's like, what have we learned there? What have we learned with health and nutrition and exercise or being parents or having goals and dreams? Like, there's been a lot to get us united where we just get to focus on just having an amazing life together. Now we're not cleaning up crap with the past anymore. We're just creating a more beautiful life.
One of the things that I love about your guys' story, and I'd love to hear more about it, is that it didn't start off perfect, right? It wasn't like, we've had the honeymoon phase just last for 20 years.
Well, so we did it so early. So I don't know if everyone knows, but we got married very early. We were still in college. I was actually still
were you 17? Did you have to get her dad's permission?
She was 19.
So we got married in 2001. We met in March and we were married by December. That's 8 months, which I just want to say is very different than some of the websites out there that have bios on Kris Krohn. They're wrong.
I'm 5'7".
I have to say this.
False.
I have to just clear the record, you guys. Okay, I'm not his longtime girlfriend of 7 freaking years. It was like a whirlwind.
Wait, what?
No, there's actually a couple websites out there that have bios on famous people. And there's a bio on Kris Krohn that says that we dated for like 7 years and we got married in 2007. Okay. I was pregnant with my second kid in 2007, and
after having been married
for a long time. And it says that Kris Krohn is like 5'8", which is ridiculous.
Or 5'7".
Because he's a giant. If you look at him
There's
in pictures,
nothing wrong with being 5'8".
No, there's nothing wrong with being 5'8". Just so you know,
people always disappointed. They're like, "Whoa!"
I know. When they see you,
they don't know you're that big, but he's 6'3.5". I just want to say it. That's his exact height, and. There we go. Okay.
We'll keep the rest of the dimensions
back to us. We got married. It was a whirlwind romance. I was 19. He was 21 when we met, 22 when we got married. And my mom pretty much told us, you're going to have to finish raising each other because I wasn't done with you. Meaning, like, you're so young. You're in the middle of college. I understand why you're doing it this young, but take care of each other, grow with each other, finish growing up together, pretty much.
Well, and I want to be clear, when Colleen met me, I didn't own anything. I had no assets, no investments. I wasn't an entrepreneur. I was going to be a doctor.
True.
I had saved up $10,000 before college. That's all I had
and
to my name.
And it was spent by the week we got married.
Yeah, on basically
we got a car,
$1,600.
We got a ring.
Justy Subaru.
We got a tuition, one semester's tuition, and it was gone.
Yeah, it was gone.
So we started with a couple things like that.
Which was, by the way, really important for my story because Colleen and I have different upbringings, right? Like my parents, they struggled with money and they were always in debt, but my dad was a good earner and they always fought about money. They had also 9 kids, number 4. My wife, on the other hand, her parents...
They saved and they didn't like debt and they paid for things cash.
And their motto is,
and they were fine.
We have money because we don't spend money.
it. They would save and wait and then get things when they could afford it, which was really, really smart.
So I didn't know this about Colleen, but when you marry someone, you're marrying everything that you know about them, but you're also marrying everything you don't know. Like, I didn't know after the first few months of marriage that she was almost going to have a freaking heart attack when we were in debt, when we didn't have money, we were going deeper into debt. My job didn't cover all the bills. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is completely freaked over money. And I'm like, what's wrong with just being a college kid in debt? And she went nuts over it from her upbringing.
Yeah.
And
you also didn't know I'd throw my clothes on the ground.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Hold on. It's called the invisible backpack, Kris. We all have an invisible backpack that nobody else sees of everything we carry. And when you get married, you're accepting everything in her pack.
Except it's more like a Harry Potter backpack. There's a lot of stuff in there.
People's invisible backpack come in varying sizes.
What I loved is that we were so young, we didn't actually have a ton of baggage, relationship-wise. I didn't have, a whole, I don't have years and years of relationships, to talk to you about, and vice versa. We were so young.
Kris didn't have a stream of illegitimate children strewn out there
Exactly.
somewhere.
No, we went into marriage virgins. Like we were old
Wow,
fashioned.
we went there today.
No, I'm just saying how it was. Like we were like maybe the
Old-fashioned.
last of that generation, if you will, to some extent. And it's really weird now. I'm in my early 40s. We're celebrating 20 years of marriage, and I have there's some people that are just getting started right now, but I have the most enriching life. We have been through the worst of it. We've been through the best of it. And for the last many years now, we've literally been riding cloud nine just about every single day because we've learned how to manipulate each other for max happiness. We've learned how to gamify the concept of a relationship where there's no reason to get huffy puffy, upset, frustrated, angry, pissed. We've done all of that, and then we moved past all that garbage so that we could literally create something new and beautiful, something better.
So let's talk about some of the hard stuff, Kris. You say that sex and money. Which one do you want to start with?
Dude, let's talk about sex.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody's hoping we'll talk about the latter first.
I'm a guy. That's exciting. I just like that word.
I think for a lot of women, it's exciting too.
No, if we really want to go there, Glenn and I had two very concepts of sex, lacked sexual experience, identity, and
which is good and bad.
It didn't take very long before I'm like, okay, this woman has her own concepts of sex that are wildly different than mine. Crazily different, and that became unreconcilable and became actually emotionally frustrating and heavy. And we were probably more of that classic couple type that we fought about sex all the time. We thought that it was our frequencies are different. I want it more. She wants it less. So it was always this idea where it was geez, neither of us can really be happy. And sex. It took many years before I realized that sex actually means something very different to each one of us. We have a very different concept of what it is, and we didn't understand that it was about trying to figure out how to do our best to advocate for each other's needs instead of negotiating for what we want. I hate that idea of negotiation in marriage. It means that both parties end up with less to find a middle ground.
So how do you do that though? Kris, there are couples all over the world right now that struggle with the same thing. It comes up at our events even. We've had people get up, and it's not always the man and the woman. Sometimes the roles are inverse, but one person in the marriage wants more sex, and the other's I couldn't care less.
I used to view that as a bad thing.
You used to think that we should be the same.
Yeah, it's just I think that people think that we're supposed to be the
there
same.
is something wrong with me if I didn't want it as much as you did.
If there's one thing the world's doing really well is it's celebrating differences, and whoever you are attracted to and find yourself in a relationship with, you don't love them because they're a carbon copy of you. That'd be the worst, most boring relationship on the planet. And yet, when those differences become inconvenient in our way, then we use it as a strike point, a fighting point, and we become defensive, or then we want to justify. And right now, in my world today, I celebrate every way that this woman is different than me. And I love her for all of her differences, because whatever she has, I have. And all of my strengths, everything I have, she has. She may have to live with some of my weaknesses. But I don't really think we figured things out until we discovered something that we call the unconditional love game. It's what reframed our entire marriage. Not sex. Sex, money, time, service, everything got touched.
It was that plus spousal advocacy, which is a different principle. We can
but
talk about both.
I think that's the advanced version. So we started by playing this game. I got to a point where I was really sick and tired of being sick and tired. Kid you not, I was in the shower lying on the ground crying with the shower on at one of my lowest moments. And I'm like, maybe this is it. This is too hard. We can't figure it out. And I was projecting. I can't get her to see my way or what's important to me. And I was trying to fight for what I knew that I wanted that she wouldn't give. And I thought that I literally started thinking about divorce. We need to get divorced. And it was right then, I swear God just gave me this this beautiful inspiration, this game just downloaded. We call it the unconditional love game. And it was for me. I didn't know that at the time, but the game had 4 little steps. It basically said, Kris, tomorrow morning, ask her what she wants. Step 2, do it without strings attached. And then finally, check back at the end of the day to see how you did. And so that next morning, it was weird. I was like, well, I don't have anything to lose. We're in a really bad place. So I asked her what she wanted. And she wanted something that I absolutely hated to do. She wanted me to get up, one of my kids and dress them. And for me, it was something that I hated to do, but I'm like, wait a second, just do it. And so I woke up my son, I dressed him, we came down for breakfast. Then my wife, of course, told me that I did it all wrong. I put the wrong clothes, and she took him upstairs to redress him. But so that was the feedback I got right then and there. But I tried the next day, unloaded dishwasher. I tried the next day, dropped the kids off at school. I tried the next day, and something started happening inside of me the longer I played this game. When I asked her what she wanted, I decided that I was going to give it to her the way she wanted it. There wasn't going to be strings attached. And then at the end of the day, when I got feedback, it wasn't because I wanted to fish for a compliment. I really wanted to know, how actually did you want this done? What does it actually look like for this to be done the way you want? And over a couple of months, I got lost in this game. And I just got to say, 3 weeks in, something happened. My heart changed, and I realized that my unhappiness came from trying to get what I wanted instead of putting my focus on trying to understand what this woman wanted that I've committed to. When we were in love, I promised to give her the moon. I promised to give her everything. And all of a sudden, I was just worrying about me, and I didn't realize maybe the person with the problem is the problem. And it was in that moment I realized I was.
We realized that marriage is a selfless play. And if you get into selfish of, well, what about my needs? And that's your focus of what about me, and how come you're not giving me what I want? You're pretty much going to ruin it. If you are, wait a sec, let's step out of me. What are they not getting? Because if they are not in a space to give you love the way you particularly want it, it means they are suffering and they are not getting what they are needing.
So I got to ask, when Kris first turned to you that morning and said, "What do you want today?" What was your reaction? Did you think this was real? Did you think this is like a game? Is this a manipulation? Yeah. Because I've heard that response to this game as well.
I was surprised, but yeah. I had a list. I was like, well, you can do
apparently this was overdue.
This for me, please.
So as the longer I played the game, the more selfless I felt. And then one day, Colleen woke up, and after I asked her, she asked me, she said, "What do you want?" And fast forward several months later, and both of us were basically trying to strive for what each other wanted. Because think about it, when you fall in love with someone, there are things that you hope that there's desires that you have that you hope that they fulfill. And it doesn't feel good when someone gives you a gift they don't mean to give. At least for me, I need there to be a true intention behind what's actually given. And in time, Colleen and I, it was a learning process, but we learned not only how to give each other what we wanted, but how to do it with all our hearts. And more importantly, it then turned into a PhD version of this game that Colleen brought up.
Ooh, PhD is spousal advocacy. This is where we can agree to disagree. We don't have to be the same, and we can support each other in our goals and dreams, even if they're not our goals and dreams.
And what it looks like is, I want what you want because you want it. In other words, my rules in life have always been, as long as it is good, as long as it's moral, as long as it's not illegal,
right.
If you want it, I don't have to understand it. I'm going to make it my life's quest and mission. I'm going to, this is what advocacy is.
As long as it doesn't hurt us too.
I want it more for you than you even want it yourself. Because in life, we're either giving someone a gift in scarcity, satisfaction, or abundance. And so, for example, like if my wife, let's just say that she asked me what I want, and I say, well, I want to make love. I want really deep, connective, meaningful intimacy. If Colleen decides to put out and doesn't put her whole heart and energy into it, she might be able to say, check, I did it. But if she doesn't even know that I really received it, it may have been a gift that still produces scarcity, which means a feeling of lack, like, well, I want more.
Yes,
if
because how many times have you received making love that was not all in, and then we're left wanting because it wasn't what you wanted?
So then you elevate. Then you play a game that's like, well, what, she would start to ask, like, what really exactly do you want? And I found out that if she gave me exactly what I wanted, I'd feel satisfied. But when she started giving me beyond what I asked for, it was overwhelming, because I like, my cup spilleth over. I got more than I wanted, and I started entering into a game of abundance. I know that game financially, but to feel in love that you're getting more than you want, and for me, it just totally puts me on fire to want to do the same for her. What do you want? And then I ask myself, like, what's the one up? And then I'm going to go over the top.
Well, and I can only imagine that this is why your house is filled with rocks.
Oh my gosh, Colleen.
See, we can move beyond sex here into hobbies, right?
Wait,
Glenn
do you consider your rock obsession a hobby?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have moved so far beyond hobby,
okay.
Colleen.
Glenn is a
I-
mineralogist.
Fine.
I think
She's a
it's
For all of
mineralogist.
clear.
you that don't know, I have a thing for crystals. You don't have to call them rocks, Carson.
Yeah,
And
that's
I-
Is that demeaning? I'm not part of this
Don't
world.
ever
This
say
And
was
that
I
again.
collect
unintentional.
them. I do. And
They're
I like
beautiful.
I like to go to rock shows and expos and
Wait, rock
and,
show.
Yeah, well,
Not crystal
okay.
shows.
Gem and mineral
Gems.
shows.
That's the perfect word. These are
So,
gems.
so Clen and I, when in the beginning, like this is a great example. In the beginning, when Clen would tell me about rocks, I would literally roll my eyes and fight. And I'm like, this is so stupid. Why would you pay money for something like that? Like, this is dumb. And so I was just like, and I'm like, I was being such a perfect version of me that didn't care about what she wanted. And like, Kris, why on earth do you have to even understand it? Like, you didn't marry this woman to only give her the things that conveniently rebound back beautifully to you. Like, she's not supposed to want what you want. Like, you're two totally different human beings. How are you ever going to get what you want if you'll only give her things that benefit you? It was just, seems a little stupid when I say it out loud now.
Yeah, so now he goes to shows with me every time.
Every time.
Someone's got to haul those crystals out because they're heavy.
That's what these are for.
And he usually tries to like,
buy the biggest rock.
he
at
wants
the
me
show.
to buy
Yes.
ones that I'm okay
I've
not
seen 'em.
buying.
The last
you
show,
know?
we bought a 6-figure rock.
Dude, I've seen the
It's
stand
it's
for
five
it.
and a half
That one
feet tall, 2
hasn't
feet
even
wide.
arrived yet.
I've
because-
only seen the stand for it, and that's insanity.
Yeah,
It's
we're
going in
getting
our
a,
spa.
a custom build stand for it because the stand it was on was gross. So
But anyway, the point is that you're right. Our house is filled with these, beautiful crystals, and
I give
unfortunately,
tours, by the way.
I know their names. Like, I know a lot about these things, and it's because it's one thing to be a supportive spouse. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not advocacy. It's not to say, well, I'm available, just let me know. It's like, no.
You go above and
I
beyond.
want this for you as bad or more than you want it. Like, let's book the show. Hey, can we stay an extra day? Hey, do you mind if I carry that for you? Hey, like, what about this one? And I try to sell Clen all the time on rocks that she doesn't even want, because if I can get her to say yes, it's a win for me, because it meant that I achieved abundance for her. I gave her more than she wanted. And that's my game now. It's
when
the
I
abundant-
turn you down for, oh no, I'm good, I'm fine, I don't need
So-
that one, that I'm so content and happy.
So the unconditional love game has now become the abundance game. Every time it's my job. Listen carefully. It's my job to figure out what she wants, and not once a year, and not on a birthday.
And women
or holiday.
are complicated too.
Yeah. Well, so we'll talk about love languages here for just a second, but it's my job to figure out what she wants, and then it's my job to literally go above and beyond.
It is certainly your job because women don't know what they want, so you have to.
Dude,
figure
you've
it
seen,
out.
like, Gottman wrote this book, The 5 Love Languages, and they are
Oh, it's Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman, sorry. Physical intimacy, acts of service, time, quality
time and
gift giving,
words of affirmation.
and words of affirmation. And I'm like, that book is like, all humans have 5 like, no. Men, they have 1 love language. Women have 5. And women, you never know what the 5 are going to be.
Kris, they wrote a song about it. The Spice Girls, they're like, I'll tell you what I want, what I really want. And the guy's like, well, okay, tell me what you
tell
want,
me
what you really want.
what you
And she's
really-
like, I'll tell you what I want.
I was like, no,
and he's
I-
like, tell me. And she's like, I wanna, really, really want to zigga zigga ah. And it's like,
You
Yep.
never, and
that
you
is
never
so
found
not
out.
helpful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. So, but that's the game, right? Like masculine and feminine energy, whichever side it resides on, is so different, and the polarity is really
Sometimes I
beautiful.
want my feet rubbed, and sometimes I want to date, and sometimes I want you to go do the dishes, and sometimes I want you to leave me alone.
Yes.
And that is actually a way to serve and love me, is to give me
Give you space.
personal space. I'm just going to say it.
And I'm fairly predictable. I'm fairly simple, right? Like,
I would not put you in the
discovered
predictable category,
I
but
discovered
okay.
on my body that, like, the back of my neck and the sides of my neck and my ears and, like, the top of my chest and my traps, they are like the sweet spot erogenous zone.
Wow,
It
babe.
is delicious.
Okay.
I love to be pet stroked, loved,
Woo.
licked, sucked.
We are, well, oh
Like,
my gosh.
my lip-
we are
my
getting this
neck.
all, wow.
I'm just saying,
You
right?
are a cat.
Okay.
I know what I like.
Yes, you do. And now
I-
the
I-
entire world knows.
Would you like to know the other half?
No. We're going to.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit
Yes,
here.
Carson has other questions
Yeah,
for
I
us.
want to shift gears here because one time I met a couple who were engaged and they're so excited to get married and they're like, we're going to have the perfect marriage. We never even fight. And I was like, oh dear, if you don't know how your spouse fights, you're in for some surprises. How do you guys fight? Because every couple does. Like, there's no avoiding
so the weird thing is,
Okay, Carson,
it's evolved.
we should know that when we're
Driving.
I know.
And we
That's what I was going to say.
mad
I've
at
seen
each
it.
other. We're actually not mad at each other.
And how did you get there? Because I believe there was a time when you were mad at each other.
When we were very first married, if I didn't get what I liked or wanted, I would get angry, and Clem would just shut down. And then when she would shut down, I would get more angry, like fight with me, talk to me, communicate. And so I'm hyperverbal, and Clem would go nonverbal. And so
Stonewall.
We could spend days in that space before we would reconcile, but we wouldn't solve the problem. We would just use that as our coping strategy, and it sucked. And then we had to learn how to communicate. I had to learn how to calm down, and Glenn had to actually use her voice.
Also, meta-communicate, which is talking about how you communicate.
Yeah, the biggest thing that really shifted for us is we started actually analyzing how did we get here and what's the pattern behind it, rather than what are we fighting about. And so what we did is we developed a completely different pattern for disagreement.
Yeah.
And it is literally usually very calm communication. Like once in a while, I can get frustrated and angry about something. Clint doesn't read into it. She doesn't say anything about it. She just lets it pass. And then she says, do you need some love? Like, how can I help you? And I just turn into freaking melted butter.
Well, and I've seen it. The driving joke is funny because you guys fight while driving, but I totally get that you're not actually mad at each other. But I have actually seen Kris be very direct. You are a very direct human by nature, I think. You just go right for what you want and express it exactly how it is. But then I've seen you not get ruffled by it. And I'm like, how do you get to that space?
I think part of it is...
I think it's my superpower.
It is. Well, part of it is your superpower, but the other part is we've learned that we're two different people, and being one or being unified is not necessarily being the same. It's actually honoring each other's differences. So when something's important to Clen, then I'm going to ask myself, how can I support her in whatever way that looks like? And what she wants is now the most important thing to me in our relationship.
And when if you get upset about something, it's usually not me,
it's not
or it's a projection of something that's going on, and maybe
like my son is really angry right now.
Energy is going towards me because I happen to be in that general direction.
Yeah, but you shield up and you don't take any of it personally.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, let's get you what you need. Let's talk about it now. What's going on? How can we change the situation?
Yeah. There's something else though that we do. This is a new practice as of this year based on a book that I'm writing. People are always looking for balance. Mm-hmm. And balance is a really, really tough thing, right? Because quote unquote people are so busy. By the way, one of my rules is I hate to say we're busy, because it means that you are making decisions unconsciously and overcommitting your schedule. That's what busy means.
That you're out of control.
It means that you're out of control. And it's an expression of victimhood if you say I'm busy. And so I said, what would my perfect life look like in 2021? And we decided that for me, Monday I shoot videos. I work on Tuesday and Thursday from home. Wednesday is Bliss's day. That's our marriage. All day it's for Clem. Friday is my family's day. Saturday is my family's day, and Sunday is God's day. And I'm not recommending that that's a strategy for how people should basically cut up their time, but that represents a perfect amount of work and a perfect amount of me and a perfect amount of us and a perfect amount of parenting and a perfect amount of God.
And we just started that maybe 3 months ago as like an experiment. And how do you think it's going?
Well, I was going to ask you, how do you think it's going?
I love it.
It's like the best. We have a whole day. It's not a date night. It's a date day. And the whole day. And for us, and people just have to understand that this may not apply to your relationship. My wife is my actual best friend. I prefer her to anyone else. I love spending time with her. I never get sick of her.
Aww.
And no, I'm being honest. I just love being with this woman.
As you are mine.
When I wanted to become financially free, it wasn't so I could get ahead.
So you can spend time.
It was so that I could have time with my wife. And I got to a point where I had all this money and I still wasn't having time with her. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Or when we finally did get time, she would get so busy with the kids. And I'm like, that's it. Not only 3 months ago did we start this next level experiment of Bliss Day, but we've got 3 staff in our home. We've got people that are organizing our house and getting the groceries and making meals and driving kids around. And I do that to take, we've got 4 kids. It is overwhelming for any mother of 1, 2, or 3 or more kids. That's just it's a job that constantly puts them out of the zone of I'm a wife or I'm a woman, and it totally puts you into I'm mom mode. And there's a certain amount of stress and overwhelm that comes with it. And, we had a nanny when our kids were small, but right now what we're doing is we're perfecting our use of time, which means that we got to prioritize each other, and priorities will always show up financially or on a schedule. And for us, it shows up with time.
So many marriages that deteriorate over years because they're not prioritizing themselves. And they put their kids above all. And I want to just address that, because they'll say nothing is more important than my children. Kids are number one. Absolutely. But they will sacrifice their partner for their kids. And I disagree with that. I would say your kids, love them, prioritize them, sure, but they will grow up and they will leave and they will go create their own families and lives other places. And you are left, hopefully, with your spouse or your partner. And do you still know them? Do you still want to be with them? Have you nurtured that relationship along with it? And if you're going, I don't understand the point of a family if you can't prioritize your spouse or your partner.
Well, and this is actually a really good seg, because Kris, you opened this up online and got feedback from people. What do they want to hear about marriage? What do they want to know about relationships? And one of the great questions that came from online, Brandon Hetland, how do you get over the roommate stage, which is the honeymoon phase? You're figuring marriage out, you're together, you start having kids, and then suddenly you stop feeling like you're in a marriage, and you start feeling like, oh, we just share a same space and pass like trains in the night.
So for Glenn and I
never considered you a roommate.
No, but I think part of that is some people are more similar than others. Glenn is extreme feminine energy, and I'm extreme masculine energy. And I have a huge need. Glenn is very easily content. I have a very hard, I go stir crazy when I'm like, the content drives me nuts. I'm always seeking novelty. I'm always seeking something new. I'm always looking for something different. I'm always looking for new stimuli, a new experience, something that's never been done. I have it all. I want to do it all, right? Part of having it all for me is doing it all. So part of that is that we every Sunday we have a meeting where we actually talk about how the week went and what we can do to spice it up, make it more exciting, making it more fun.
Because that's one of your needs.
One of my needs is it's not even one of the 5 needs. Like my need is the need for novelty. I need uncertainty. I need variety. I need things to be unpredictable, and I live for it. And so that's important to me. So we don't really have that problem between the two of us. Just because.
But if someone did, if someone did have a roommate situation where their spouse
But it takes planning.
Yeah.
Like we don't wait for spontaneity. We're like, hey, we have a meeting. We're going to talk, and the purpose of the meeting is to plan what we're going to do to make life fun and exciting.
Obviously, that couple is not spending or prioritizing time together or interests together. So it would be find something you're interested in, spend time together. Create a fun life together instead of just passing in the night. So,
Colleen, though, I really do want to hear everything you have to say about this idea of roommates, because Kris said you're naturally more content. And
That's
so
true.
his need for novelty, how do you cope? Like, how did you
How do
find
I
a way-
cope?
Okay,
How do I cope?
How do you cope with
How do you
that?
cope with Kris Krohn?
With,
right?
with being
'cause
married
you
to
don't-
this?
am I wrong? Am I wrong? Do you have this need for constant novelty and like adventures and doing new things?
Okay, so I enjoy new things.
Okay.
I do. So I enjoy new things. I'm not naturally always seeking it. So our us day on Wednesdays, it has to kind of change up. Sometimes we run errands together. I know Kris doesn't like to always do that. Sometimes we do something so epic. Like one day he actually booked a private jet and flew me to Disneyland for the day.
Really?
Yes. That was last month. And then we came home that night. And to this day, our kids don't know that we did that. And we will never tell them.
I didn't even know you guys did that.
No, we did. And then sometimes there have been a couple days where we're staying home today because number one,
oscillate between
I don't
the
feel
needs.
like going anywhere.
Yeah,
but also you needed like a mental health rest day. So we binged watch movies in bed
Played
and
Halo.
made love and hung out in the hot tub and ate food and just hung out at home. And it was awesome.
Yeah,
So this goes back to the spousal advocacy.
100%, and we take turns.
Yeah, we take turns.
So we don't argue about each other's needs anymore. Literally, if they say it's a need, don't argue, embrace it, and then run with it and accept it. And so it's like, all right, what do you need? Whose needs? And we have a different rule that really works in our marriage, which is the person who feels strongest wins. And what that means is that sometimes you don't, like, what's your strategy on how to decide how to use time or how to use money?
So if he wants something way more than I don't want it, I'll be like, you know what? We'll do it.
And there are things that Glenn really wants, and I'm like, I don't get it. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that so bad for you.
And sometimes people will think that Kris's personality is way stronger than mine, which maybe there's some truth to that. But if I don't want to do something, I will absolutely put my foot down, and there's nothing you can do that will change my mind.
Listen, I may have a strong personality, but Glenn has, I think that her spirit animal is a mule.
What?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. There's no stubborn
way.
ass.
No way.
That's a donkey.
A sweet one though, right?
It's a sweet little burro. It's a cute little.
Okay.
Oh, this is all so good. Can we pivot and talk money?
Yeah.
Sure.
I've got a couple questions here around money. And the first off, we're going that direction in the beginning, but then we got sidetracked. Investing.
Yeah.
You weren't okay with it at first. Debt. You weren't okay with it at first. How did?
Dude, we were not on the same page
I think
at all.
there are loads of couples where one member is like, we got to take risks and
make
our money grow. And then the spouse is like,
like Colleen was very much just get a job and be okay with that. And I'm like, a job will never get us where we need to go. I need to invest and I need to build. And then eventually it became, I need to build a business. And
that means big risks.
We all come from our own backgrounds, okay? And mine was very much safety and saving and not being in debt, which is great. But because I was so young, there's two things. One, I was like deer in the headlights, like freaked out because we bought our first house when I was 21.
Jealous.
Like barely legal, okay?
Was that 2002?
2003.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, we'll never see 2003 prices again.
That's true. I know. And that little house was $110,000.
We'll also never see 2021 prices again.
It's true.
Anyway, so it was all very scary. It was all very scary because I didn't know anything about finances and the ways of the world and things like that. But the good thing about it is that I also was young.
Yeah.
Because we were able to grow together. We were able to learn how to invest together. And though it was scary, we were able to do it together. And Kris did his research, and he worked for a company where he got to learn all about, the real estate gurus that were mentors. Popular at the time, the mentors at the time. And he would be able to come home and teach me what he learned at work. And gradually it was, okay, that sounds sound. That plan sounds okay. Let's go for it. I'll support you. I'm terrified, but let's just go for it.
But I want to identify something Glenn is saying. She wasn't really saying, I want this so bad. She was saying, I will support this. We both moved into some level of a growth mindset where we would basically say, listen, you're going to have to learn your spouse's sexual desires and needs if you ever want to please him. You're also going to have to learn your spouse's other desires and needs, or going to the gym or working out. Like, you should become infinitely curious about your spouse.
And
do they really even understand themselves?
You needed to grow.
I did. I would take time helping Glenn understand it. But at some point, she was tapped. And it doesn't take a whole lot of financial talk before Glenn's like, blah, 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 over my head. I don't care. I've lost interest.
Just go for it.
And I eventually got to the point where I'm like, okay, listen, I'm going to do this. And I'm just going to invite you to trust me. And she was like gripping me for dear life. Okay, I support you.
Okay, but people are going to want to know, how many times did we make a bad investment? How many times did we lose money along the way?
Well, I think we lost quite a bit of money along the way, but for the most part, the majority of our investments worked out. And as they started working out, like, you ponied up faith. Dude, on our first property, it worked. Our second property, Clem was just as scared because we weren't going to live in this one. And that $600 a month started rolling in every month.
I would never rent. And those first renters stayed for like 10 years.
Yeah, I know. And then Clem, by the third month of collecting $600, came to me jolly. She was so excited.
Let's do it again. But it was like the
No, you went too fast. Oh. After the second property, that $600 a month, you saw proof. You saw it working. Yes. And you knew we were so poor. $600 a month
was significant.
Was crazy amounts of money. We were living for free in our house with the basement rented out to someone else that was paying the mortgage.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden all our groceries were paid for.
And so Clem was getting out of debt. She was paying it down. And it was her idea. She's like, dude, we should do this again. I'm like, I did the first one. She was terrified. I did the second one. She was terrified. And now she's saying it's her idea that we need to buy more houses.
But there was like
and that's when we started building a portfolio.
One of the fourth or fifth houses we did was a bust. Do you remember?
Yes.
One of them was.
Yep.
Or maybe two of them were. There were a few along the way.
A couple dogs.
But, and that was disappointing. but we were getting more wins than losses. And I'm like, okay.
And that helped.
If I don't freak out when there's a loss and just put faith into, okay, that was a growing pain. We can get through this. We can figure it out. Let's just push forward because we are winning more than we're losing. So
Well,
I tried really hard not to freak out when
what
we
was
would lose
really cool,
something.
and this is the risky part of a relationship that wants to go anywhere. You've got to take some risks. And, so Clen basically, she got on board and then she educated herself and then she saw a lot of the benefits coming and then she started supporting me. I got to drop this though, because this is not going to be super popular. I can't tell you how many couples I've spent time with where one wants to invest or one wants something and then the other person is literally digging in their feet and they're just saying no. And all you really need is that spouse's support. You don't need their buy-in. You don't need anything else. And I got to tell you, I used to, in the early days, give this advice like, okay, we'll just hang on until you guys can get on the same page, maybe talk more. And these days it's like, why did your spouse marry you? Was it for you to only pursue what they approved of? Or did they marry you for who you are? And at some point, I had to hold my own and say, I love you. I am not on the same page with you, and I'm going to do this because I believe it's what's best for us and you and me. And I think that there's a time when you have to realize that your spouse's buy-in may be holding you back. Or like, for example, it's like, well, I'll go to the gym if you go to the gym. I'll go to the gym if you also get a gym membership and we'll do it together. I'm like, dude, at some point, honor yourself. In some point, honor your spouse by being the man or the woman, the person that you promise to be, whether you do or don't have their support. Some of our best moves came when my wife was scared. Some of our best moves came when we weren't on the same page. But I knew in my heart what I had to do, even if it went, quote unquote, against her wishes.
And how many times do spouses actually sabotage each other?
Well, and sometimes we sabotage by saying, you don't have my support. And it's like, well, listen, as much as I'd love to have your support, like, this is what you want from me, whether you're using those words or not, and I'm going to do this.
So I'm curious on this conversation of money, because there's the investor mindset where it's like, oh, these are big risks. But there's also couples who have issues with money because one person is a spender. And the other person is a saver. And we're not talking about spending on investments. We're talking about running up credit cards at the mall.
Yeah, budgets.
I was never a spender. I was very content with in the beginning when I didn't buy crystals.
So Clem wasn't a spender and I was an investor. So I didn't need stuff. I didn't need wardrobe, clothes, cars. I didn't need anything.
We were pretty good. We were pretty aligned.
The first 5 years, we didn't buy anything nice.
When we were in college and we were really poor.
KPPP.
Yeah, no, we actually had a thing where if we spent more than $20
a month.
No.
In total.
No.
A month.
At a time. In a transaction, we had to tell each other about it.
No, we actually did this thing called KPPPM where we said we have a dedicated $20 budget for this month's joy and happiness for the enrichment of our marriage.
Well, that was a different thing.
Yeah, but that's how we save money. Point is that we were on the same page.
It was like, hey babe, I spent $30 on groceries today.
Kris,
or
spending habits don't look like that today.
Yeah. Do you want to tell about the Snickers bar?
Oh my! It was Skittles and it wasn't Snickers.
Oh, I don't even remember.
The wrapper.
Dude, I found the wrapper in her JanSport backpack, and I saw the Skittles, and
I was in college and I was hungry, and
I had tears, and I'm like,
yes, I bought a candy
65
bar,
cents.
and you didn't know about it.
It was 65 cents, and I literally came to her upset like, we promised each other.
You would tell me.
You would tell me, and like literally, I was crying over 65 cents. Fast forward to today,
and you're like,
that's hilarious. I wanted to go back in time and slap that boy.
Sometimes I buy crystals and I don't tell you.
What?
I'm just going to say
What would you say to somebody that's struggling with a spouse that runs up the credit card and just buys all sorts of stuff just because they really enjoy buying things?
You gotta talk about that.
Yeah,
Amazon.
I was going to say.
Amazon addiction.
Dude, some couples don't have really great communication tools. I believe in doing something. I learned this from Sean Callaghan. It's called agreement formation. So when Clen and I got married, we made some very, very basic promises to each other. I'm going to love you forever, and I'm not going to hump other women, right? Like,
oh my gosh.
I'm just saying, like, the promise was really elemental. We have been augmenting our marriage contract now for years with creating new agreements. And you can't impose an agreement on someone. You basically say, here's the rule that I'd like to suggest, and I'd like for us to discuss it and debate it on all sides. And then if we adopt it, it's going to be written out, and we're both going to commit to honor it.
And I think there's ways that you can also give each other freedom to spend things on, pleasures or things that make the
Yeah, but
spouse happy. Let me say,
Yeah.
because what we did back in the day was very extreme as far as like really always talking about every single penny that we spent. And that's definitely not realistic. But if there's a way to say, hey, this percentage of our earnings can go to this account and this can be your play money. Once it's gone for the month, it's gone, but you can have that freedom. Let's work it out that you can buy little things that you want.
But an agreement formation.
But it has to be an agreement.
It has to be an agreement. So a lot of people, what they're doing is they're imposing their rules on other people. And this creates really unhappy marriages. Well, I'm mad at you because you did this thing. I'm like, well, you're mad because they're not following your rule. Remember, that's yours. Just because you're married to the person doesn't mean that your rule book becomes their rule book. You know what I'm talking about? Like there are people out there that are crazy rule book keepers. They got all these crazy rules. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're following, like I have a lot of rules, but my rules are mine. They're not my wife's. They're not my kids. They're mine. If I'm going to hold someone else to a different rule, I can't do that until we actually have a conversation and come to agreement. So there has to be in every marriage. Listen, every successful business has a way of amending an operating agreement. They have a way of coming together and then mutually agreeing upon something. So for example, if there's a spending problem, then we get to have a meeting. Every couple should, by the way, a marriage, by the way, is a business. Meaning your business, if it's run wrong, you can go bankrupt, divorced. Your business is run right, you can become, worth $1 billion,
profitable.
Right? We're running a business, and businesses are run with departments and meetings. For example, I've always been in charge of finances, so I'm that department head, and I deserve to have a meeting with my wife because it's our money, and we're going to talk about those choices, and we're going to create agreement formation and agreement. Intimacy. Glenn might say, wow, Kris, you like intimacy sexually more than me. I'm going to put myself at the head of that department, and we're going to have weekly meetings to see how I did as the department head and see if we need to make some changes or whatnot. And so every part of marriage, parenting, etc., is a department. Who's in charge? The person in charge is the leader. That doesn't mean they're a tyrant. It means that they're responsible for making sure that meetings happen and agreements are formed that are mutually agreeable.
And that both parties are pleased and satisfied with how it's going.
Yes, and being a manager is more like a servant leader role, where my job is to say, well, I might be in charge. That doesn't give me power. That tells me I'm the bigger, I have to serve more to help produce an outcome for the us of our marriage. So I think that if you have a problem in your marriage, you got to treat it like a department, and it deserves a meeting at least every single week. You probably need to touch base every day. By the way, if you study business, you realize that every week you're measuring the KPIs, the key indicators that will determine all success for that department's outcome, and that there are then follow-up daily critical drivers or 2 or 3 touch points that will yield the ultimate KPI or result. So in other words, the department leader should be touching base with their subordinate on a daily to make sure that the daily drivers are met. And then every week have a meeting to come together and say, how did we do? Did we hit our KPI? Yeah. Do we run our marriage that way? It doesn't feel like a boardroom. It's far more intimate. Sometimes it's pillow talk. It's fun. But the reality is these meetings are taking place. How else can you raise a family and be on the same page? How can you get nutrition on the same page? How can you get your health on the same page? How do you get your finances? Dude, it's a complicated organism when you start adding people to it. And so you have to have talk time, and you have to have a system for getting to agreement formation. Without it, you're going to fight.
We had a question I read on health, and it was, how with a bunch of kids do we make time for being healthy, for exercising and working out? Do you want to tell them what time we get up?
Well, so Glenn and I, we get up at 5 a.m. and we're at the gym till 7 a.m. We have a couple of buddies, sometimes 2 or 3 couples that will lift with us. Casey over here who's like, that's me sometimes.
Running the podcast.
But
we get up early. That's what we do.
We'll do cardio together so we can talk and connect. And then we have our different lifting buddies, but we're there together. And there's some memory making and some connection that happens there.
And at the beginning, I didn't love getting up early. In fact, I hated getting up early. But in the years of raising kids,
it became
if I don't do it before breakfast, it will not happen. So it's just one of those things I'm used to now. I just get up early.
Real quick, golden nugget, just side takeaway, is that sacrifice is required to have a strong marriage. And sacrifice means trading less for more. It's actually a beautiful thing. You're going to have to get rid of some of the things that you like at times to create a stronger whole. And so I think that when Glenn and I do that together, now we have someone today that will make food for us to help us keep on point with our meal plans and nutrition. But back when we were making the food, Clem was the head of that department, while I would work. And we created agreement formation on what could be in our home and what couldn't. What is too processed and unhealthy that we don't want our kids to have? Because one of our goals, like we have different long-term goals. One of our goals for our kids is to not raise obese children. Like if one of our children wants to become obese, great. But do it when you're out of our house. Do it because we taught you food, we taught you nutrition, and we'll love you no matter what either way, but we've taught you how to take care of your body because we were in charge of that. And there's no shame or guilt intended for anyone listening to that. That's just a goal that we have where our children understand what is right and wrong with food. They understand what's healthy and what builds, and they understand macros. And that's really important to the two of us because that's one of our goals is that we have healthy.
Our younger kids just understand that there's a certain amount of food that your body needs to survive and to be happy. And if you eat more than that, your body won't need it. And so it'll just stay on it.
Yeah.
And vice versa. You have to have the right amount.
So we're running right up against time here, but there's one more topic that I think is super appropriate to discuss, and it came up on that Instagram feed. Some of these people know about the struggles you've had with a special needs child, and that can be a really big struggle for a couple.
Yeah.
Because a special needs child will be parented very different than other kids. So how did that go for you guys? How did that
What's
affect
the
your
actual
marriage?
question?
You want me to read it?
This is beautifully raw because I think that before when we had Kaiser and realized that he had autism, I think both of us kind of went into panic mode. Like, how do we fix this?
As a married parent with special needs child, how did you and your wife keep your marriage alive after finding out the news about your son? Did you already have money when the diagnosis happened? Thanks.
So, Kaiser is on the autism spectrum. He's super awesome. Very difficult, though. He's a very difficult child.
But when he was young, he was missing all of his milestones.
When we found out about it,
quite profound.
there was definitely panic. There was definitely grief.
Fear of inadequacy.
Loss of an insecurity and unsureness about his future. But I think when we got married, we made a distinct promise to each other. For rich or for poor, for good things happening, bad things happening, that we were going to stick together and find a way through it together.
Yeah.
And we've had several losses in our life. Like, some people don't know, we have 4 kids, but I had 3 miscarriages, and they were very hard on me.
Well, we've had business struggles.
We've had businesses fail.
We've lost friends.
Definitely lost friends. We've had people we love die.
Yeah, there's been some.
Life happens.
Yeah, and there's no pity party here about it. I feel like we're extraordinarily blessed, but I have to be honest with Kaiser. I think probably one of the worst moments for me was when I just thought, God, I always told you that I can't handle a handicapped child. It was the most stupid thing I've ever said, and crazy ironic when I finally realized that's exactly what God apparently knew that I needed, and something my soul was terrified by. And I remember when my wife and I were doing everything we could to find a solution to move him from profoundly autistic to mild. And I was about to give up, and my wife wouldn't have it.
No, I had to believe that there were things that could be done to help him to have a better functioning life.
Right after I was going to give up, and Glenn snapped at me on that one, set me straight. A week later, we met someone on a business trip in California. We were sitting in the backseat of this car and hearing the most miraculous story of this woman talking about how she had been a secretary just 6 months earlier in this doctor's office on the East Coast, and for that 2-year period had seen all these kids come and go and seen literally
and improve so much.
Improve, sometimes even completely healed. And a month later, I was on a flight with Kaiser, and we found we were able to move him from a level of autism where he couldn't respond to his name, potty train, etc., to where, today he's
chewing us out.
He's 13 years old, and sometimes I want to smack him. He argues, and he's a really good kid. He's a beautiful boy, and he's so functional now. He loves Minecraft. He's kind of a Minecraft genius.
He is. And his favorite thing is to teach people how to play.
But I really credit my wife for reminding me that we had made this promise to each other and that I was about to give up on it.
This is the thing that I think we really try to do, if at all possible. It's that we're not we can't both of us be really low or really down at the same time.
Yeah, that's another one of our rules. Take turns.
It's if I'm having a turn to fall apart, I'm going to fall apart. You get to hold me. You get to tell me everything's okay. You get to hold space for me for all the emotions that I get to have in that moment. And you just need to be there. And then if the next moment you have a turn to fall apart, then we'll do that. But the goal is to stay together. The goal is to work through that grief or that sorrow or that anger or that frustration together and never let that drive a wedge between us in any way. Like it's a way that we cleave closer to each other.
Every challenge has galvanized us. Every challenge. And by the way, before this podcast ends, I have to share one more thing that I just feel like if we don't mention it, there's one person that's going to hear this and it's really going to benefit. I think one of the other reasons why Glenn and I are living this amazing married life right now and just really enjoying each other. It's sure a lot of people are like, well, it's easy for you to say you're rich. I'm like, well, that's its own challenge and growth thing, right? But in truth, now that we, as far as have it all goes, it's like you're right. We have. I've got 9-figure net worth goals for this next year, and that's just playtime and fun for me. And I'm loving my life, and my wife gives so much meaning to my life. I love everything about her. I love spending time with her. But there's a rule that we've had that I think is important to say in today's world. We've both decided to keep all of our sexual energies invested in each other.
Yes.
And we've made a commitment. No pornography, no going outside the lines, swinging, just some of the stuff that's out there, right? When people are seeking for novelty at a level that can put your relationship at risk. And at some point, I think just being a man, I've always known that, dude, if you have just in one moment, you can lose everything. Because I've never lost.
Ask Bill Gates.
I don't think there's a lot of people that could actually believe that there's no porn, but there is no porn in our house ever.
Well, and it's just I want to be really clear. I've got loads of sexual energy. My wife has sexual energy too, but the commitment that I'm bringing up is that we've made a promise to store all of that energy inside each other. In other words, I don't look at the menu. You only look at the menu when you're hungry. And I just decided that that I'm a one-woman man. And I'm doing that, one, because I'm happier. 2, it's highly protective. And 3, it's protecting our net worth. Like, it's protecting our family. There's all sorts of good things that come from that level of discipline. So we take it to an extreme. Like, I don't put myself in any compromising situations on purpose because it's one thing to make money. It's another thing to protect it. I'm protecting my biggest assets. Glenn right now, she has a big asset.
We also have
She's a big asset to me.
That we don't hang out alone with members of the opposite sex, like ever. Like we have friends that are of the opposite sex, but they're usually in couples. And so we'll hang out with couples together, but I don't go out to lunch with guy friends, just me. It's just a respect thing.
Yeah, well, and we're both going to be 140 years old. We're going to live a super crazy long time. And our goal, health-wise, mental state-wise, financially, is to be at peak performance for as long as we can. At some point, we're going to decline. And I'm hoping it's at the very, very end of whatever that journey is. But we're trying to live a lifestyle that keeps everything safe and protected. And probably to a lot of people sounds maybe a little bit wholesome or maybe a little outdated. But I think for most people, I think for our audience here, it's going to be highly respected and loved. And
for sure.
And so, out of all the crazy novelty, I seek it through travel and all these wild things. But I'm just telling my friend right here watching this, don't ever go outside the lines, like not even a little bit, because a little bit
can ruin it all.
Yep.
Well, Kris, most people look at you as the finance guy, the real estate guy, the money guy, and it's really awesome to have these moments where we get to see a light into, we named the podcast Have It All because we wanted to be able to talk about all the different areas that make a person happy, that you've discovered and found hacks on. I don't think a lot of our listeners know about our new YouTube channels. We've got Life Elevated, where Kris takes people and talks a lot more than just money. You talk about health and then relationships. Also, if you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, you can check out Connections Elevated. And that's all about relationships. In fact, we should have Colleen back to do more episodes on talking about connections.
Yeah, every comment's going to be like, wow, you guys should have Colleen way more. She's better than that Kris guy.
Oh, you're nice.
Whatever. They're going to be like, she's better than that Carson guy. Get Kris and Colleen on together.
If you guys want, I'll come back.
Yeah. I guess I just want to share a final thought with everyone who's been listening today. For me, that at the end of the day, at the end of your life, on your deathbed, you either will or won't have regrets. And I look at every night when I turn myself into as my deathbed, because I don't know if I'm going to wake up the next morning. I assume I will. I have no reason to believe I won't, but freakier accidents have happened. And so every night when I go to bed, I just ask, have I lived the fullest life that I can? And I'm not looking for my net worth. I'm not looking for like how good the sex was. I'm looking for a feeling. Fulfillment is a feeling that can't be bought. It's earned by choices. And I love making money. It's really fun. I love the game of it. I love investing and growing it. It's such a cool thing for me to do. I love going to the gym. I love making my body healthy. I love how that makes me feel. But at the end of the day, the majority of how I really, truly, at my deepest core, feel about my life comes down to how I feel about me, which comes down to the choices I've made, comes down to my relationship with God, which comes down to the awareness and consciousness and effort I've put in that relationship. And it comes down to my wife, because she's my number one. And if I can feel good about me, God, and my wife, for me, that's my trifecta. That is more meaningful than any earthly result I'll ever be able to produce. And so I live for that. I live to feel that way. And that's something everyone's capable of. You can't buy it. It doesn't matter how much you can bench press. It really just comes down to, did you put enough conscious awareness and mindfulness into what really mattered so that you could really go to bed at night and say, if I didn't wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be okay.
I love that.
Colleen, do you have any final thoughts? Let's give you the last word. Today's episode.
I've really enjoyed talking about this and yeah, have it all. It's great to have your finances in order. It's great to have your health in order. That's so important. But relationships, I think, trump so much. If you don't have that connection, if you don't have that love in your life, if you don't have that meaningful time together with the people you love, then I don't know. I think that's just really the most important thing. So I'm grateful we could talk about it today. And I just love you. I think you're pretty awesome. I think I'll go for another 20 years or maybe more.